Hello enemies and book lovers, my name is Ash and this is going to finally be my May 2022 wrap up. I've been trying to film videos for like a week now and I'm a bit late because my apartment and everyone outside is deciding to be really loud. So I haven't really been able to film, which is really annoying and unfortunate, but I think today, you know what? I'm not even gonna say anything. I'm not gonna say anything. So in my TBR video, I had 9 books, but I only finished 7. But to be fair, that's actually pretty good for me. Although I did DNF 1 book, and I will talk about that at the very end of the video. For now, I'm going to be talking about the books first that I liked the most, and then bringing it back down to the ones I liked the least. Surprisingly, my highest rated book for the month of May was The Reckoning, which is the whatever book in the Zodiac Academy. I gave this 4 stars. I'm actually kind of surprised this is my favorite book, considering all the other books on my TBR. Zodiac Academy is written by Caroline Peckman and Suzanne Valenti, and this book was so much fun. I loved this book. I flew through this one. I think I read it. This is like a 500+ page book, and I think I read it within 5 to 6 days, which for me is amazing. I loved the romantic elements in it. These authors really know how to write romance and the flirtation between the characters. Like, I can't even explain it. I'm currently already on Shadow Princess, so I can't discuss that book, but this one is probably my favorite book so far in the series. Caleb, I really liked Caleb in this book. I mean, I feel like I shouldn't like him, but it's hard not to like him. Seth is my least favorite heir. Caleb is probably right now my favorite heir, only because he's nicer than the rest, which, But yeah, this book goes over the Reckoning. It is something that happens within the series. I can't really talk much about it since it's a bit later on in the series itself. Zodiac Academy is a series that's paranormal romance kind of series set in an academia type setting. We have the heirs who are trying to get their throne, but in the midst of that, we also see Tori and Darcy, who are twins, that find out that they are also Fae, and they go to the Zodiac Academy. Men are intimidated by this because they don't want their throne taken, and so there is a bully romance involved in this kind of. Honestly, the bullying in this whole series, it grates on me. It really grates on me. But I mean, it's a fun time. Honestly, it is. If you get past the first book or two, it gets really good. I promise. Actually, no. Some people might not like it. It is hard to get into sometimes, but I am really enjoying it. This got 4 stars. That's pretty good for me. I don't really give 5 stars out. It's very, very rare. Like, extremely rare. I don't think I've given a 5 star this entire year, and I think I read about 35 books this year, so it kind of goes to show. My second highest rated book was Skullsworn by Brian Stafford. I gave this a 3.75 but rounded it up to a 4. It follows a character from the main trilogy. It is kind of the prequel though, and this happens before the main trilogy, so it wouldn't matter if you read this before the Chronicles of the Unhewn Throne. I read it after the main trilogy and I don't mind that. I kind of liked it. This is probably the most gruesome fantasy I've ever read, and I haven't read a lot, so don't take that too much at face value, but a lot happens in this series of these of this world. Although this book in particular, because Skullsworn worship the god of death, the way that they see death is very different, and it's very jarring but also interesting. We're following the main character, seeing if she can fall in love with someone, and eventually she has to kill them. It's her final trial to become a priestess of the goddess of death, or the god of death, sorry. Just a lot. It's a lot. I did enjoy it. I think the only issue I had with it, I wasn't always hooked. It is very much like character driven, it feels, more than plot driven, because we're following the character trying to find someone who she will eventually love so that she can fulfill her trial and become a priestess. So it's a little bit sometimes boring at times, so it took me a little while to read, but it was still enjoyable. I think Brian Stafford's writing is really, really good. I am really excited to continue the next part of this universe because it's following one of my favorite characters, so I'm excited about that. Probably won't anytime soon because the series just started. I don't like starting series that haven't been finished, so I'm gonna just put a hold on that book. But yeah, I enjoyed this book. The next book is Force Bonds by Jay Bree. This is the 4th book in the Bonds That Tie series. I think this is the final book before her latest release, which is coming out June 28th or later in the month of June. I gave this a 3.5 stars but rounded it down to 3. I think so far this is the most boring book. I mean, the end was pretty good. It was a huge cliffhanger. The fact that I have to wait is infuriating, but the ending was really good and it really makes you want to keep reading. But up until the ending, there wasn't a lot happening. It just kind of felt like I was just missing, like, it just wasn't that gripping, I guess you can say. Of course the romance was still good, of course there were parts that you wanted to keep going, but it just wasn't like, it just didn't give me that. I can't explain it. The series would have definitely been better, I think, if it was maybe cut into 4 books. I think now there's 6. I'm not sure if originally it was supposed to be like a trilogy. I don't know, but it definitely feels like it's been stretched out a bit just to make it longer. I don't know. I did talk about this book in my TBR video, so I'm not gonna get too in depth with it, but it's pretty much just a reverse harem romance between, oh my god, I always forget how many guys there are. I think there's 5 guys. I keep forgetting. North, Knox, Griffin, Gabe, and Alice. Okay, yeah, there's 5 guys. There's 5. I remember them all. There's 5 guys and 1 female character, and it is also a bully romance at the very start that does eventually end. We're following 5 bonds, which are kind of like similar to mates, and there's 1 female character. She runs away for an unknown reason that you eventually figure out in the series, and the bonds get really upset about it. So you hear pretty badly in the beginning because they think that she ran away for her selfish reasons, but in reality she actually ran away to protect them. I am dying to read the next book. I can't believe J. Bree did this to us again. Like, if you like Zodiac Academy, you might like this series, although it's a bit more smutty and it's a little bit more adult. So yeah, I definitely would recommend it, but you have to be prepared if you will get into the series that there is bullying and there's also trigger warnings. The first book I have trigger warnings on my Goodreads review, so if you would like to see that, please do that before you start the series if you decide to. The next book is The Last Mortal Bond by Brandon Stavely. This is the 3rd and final book in the main trilogy. I gave this a 3 stars. It is really unfortunate though, because this is the weakest book in the series and it is the final book in the trilogy. On Goodreads it's also the lowest rating for the trilogy as well, which is really unfortunate. I feel like a lot of the characters change in the 3rd book. I don't really like that change for the most part. There are things that happened that I feel like should have been more impactful for me that weren't really that impactful. There were just things that happened that I just wasn't that, it just felt, there were just things that were just, it just felt different. I think that's the main thing to take away from it, is that it just felt so different compared to the first 2 books. And the 2nd book I really loved, and the first book was fine. I think I gave like maybe a 3.5, and then this book it was just, it felt a little bit short. It was still well written, it was still good, the characters were still good. I think Brian Stavely writes really good characters, but there's just things that happen. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. There are 3 siblings, and their father, who is the king of an empire, is assassinated. The daughter, who lives in the empire, is the first one to kind of know about it, and she tries to figure out who the killer is and try to get revenge for it. She tries to find him and kill him, essentially. The oldest of the siblings, who is technically now the king, and he is completely unaware of it. He is a monk that lives in a desolate area, so it's hard for him to find out about this information, and he is kind of just practicing to become a monk, clearing his mind. He goes through interesting things in order to make him stronger mentally. We have the younger brother who is trying to train to be a kestrel. He is leading up to a trial where he wants to become officially a kestrel, which is probably the best part in the entire series for me. I loved that trial. Although trials for me, I love that kind of stuff. So we're following all 3 of them in different environments, and eventually they coalesce and come together. And we come together trying to figure out exactly what's going to happen with the empire and who's going to be in charge, who's going to be the ruler, considering that the oldest of the siblings isn't even there. Try to stop him from being assassinated because he is now the empire and someone assassinated his father, so there is a chance that someone might try to kill him. It really is a good trilogy. I think that people should try it if they're interested in it, but since I'm new to adult fantasy, I don't know exactly how, if you should trust me on this, but I liked it. It's just that it's just a 3rd book that, it wasn't a bad last book, it just wasn't as strong, I think, as like the 2nd book, and if you can look past the changes within the characters, I think it will still be good. It was good. It just felt like a little lackluster, I guess, for me. It wasn't what I was hoping for. The next book I finished is The Revenge of Magic by James Riley. This was also a 3 stars. This is a middle grade set in a school setting. I actually liked it. I think I liked the later half of it once Fitz, is its name Fitz or Fritz? Oh. Once Fitz actually gets into the school and he starts to learn magic and all of that more interesting things happen, I liked it a lot more. At first I was a little bit bored, but it does get better as the book goes on. It's actually a pretty cool book, honestly. Different elements, so there is like vitality, destruction. So destruction is like fire magic, and there's ones that are based off vitality, which is like healing and that kind of stuff. There's one that's really rare, which involves like time travel or premonitions, that kind of stuff. So we follow Fitz finding out what his kind of powers mainly focus on. I want to keep reading this series because I think it's going to get interesting. So I'm actually really looking forward to this. Like I said, it was a 3, but for me, 3 isn't bad for middle grade. I am very, very picky with middle grade because it definitely isn't in my age demographic, but I still liked it. I'm going to continue the series. I don't know if I'll read all 5 books. I'll see how I feel as I keep going, but I quite liked this book, so I'm gonna keep going. We're down to our last 2 books. This is where things go downhill. The next book is actually a book I did not talk about in my last TBR video because the author is problematic, but because I gave this book a 2-star, well, I gave it a 2.5 stars, but I rounded it down to a 2. I gave it a 2, and I'm not gonna continue the series, so I will talk about it. And this is Ruckus by L.J. Shen. Okay. The thing is, I liked Vicious, which is the first book. So I thought, okay, I'll read it. I wasn't going to buy it or anything because I don't want to support that. This book centers around a chronically ill female character who has a crush on her sister's boyfriend. And this is when they're like younger, when they're teenagers in high school. Then it skips to the future. So it's kind of like a dual timeline between them in high school and then when they're adults, I think they're in their 20s. So she has a crush on this guy that her sister ends up dating, and then when she gets older, she acts like she hates him when actually she doesn't. She quite likes him. The main issue with me is the main male protagonist. I really didn't like him. I'm just gonna call him Ruckus for now because that's like his nickname. I'm just gonna call him that because I forgot his main name and I don't even care about it, honestly. The love interest in this story is so... he's so grating. I cannot like him at all. There was moments where I thought I liked him for a second and it just went out the window 10 seconds later. He's just sexist. He is way too hypersexual. It was too much for me. Like, he constantly bothers the protagonist and pretty much is like, oh, you're gonna sleep with me, right? Like, you're gonna do it. I don't care. How pretentious. I don't like that. I don't like that. There's confidence and then there's overconfidence. And I'm just like, nope. Nope. When they're older and she gets sick, he like takes care of her. But he also puts her in situations where she gets even more sick because of him. He has a condition where if she gets sick, it really, really affects her because she has a problem with her lungs. And she tells him about her illness and he literally throws her into a cold pool and then she's sick for days. What? There's like that's like 2 situations where he does that. And then at the end of the book, it's even worse. Like, I'm gonna do spoilers for a little bit. There's timestamps down below, so if you want to skip the spoilers, just skip until the timestamp. So I'm just gonna do spoilers right now, so forewarning. So there is a scene in this book that I don't know why this is my biggest takeaway, but this bothered me so much. So there's a part where Ruckus gets extremely drunk because of something that's happening with his mother. We don't find out it's his mother for a long time, but it's his mom who is really horrible to him, and he gets extremely drunk because of her. We follow the protagonist and he gets really, really rough with her. Like, it's in a sexual way, but it's still like, doesn't matter what the intent is, it's still, I don't know. The protagonist kept saying how they enjoyed it, so it's fine, but that's not the point. There's a part where when he's really drunk, that he takes his beer bottles and his whatever and he like throws them on the ground and they shatter, and he grabs her arm and pulls her over the ground where all the broken glass is. Like, I'll put the quote up. I highlighted it. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, and she only gets a few cuts from it. And I'm like, how the hell did you only get little cuts from this? Like, glass is extremely sharp and she just got dragged through glass. When he wakes up after all this stuff happens, because they obviously do things in the bedroom and stuff, and then he wakes up and sees that she's bruised and cut and he feels bad about it, but like, that's it. And then it moves on. At the very end, there's something happening with him, and the protagonist, she goes to a location that they agreed to visit up at, and she's asking, where are you? Where are you? It's like pouring rain. She's waiting for him. She's texting him. He's not replying. And as she's waiting outside, she doesn't know what to do. And she eventually like passes out or something like that. And she gets very, very, very sick, like very sick. And then we cut to him passed out, drunk, sleeping. I know he has like problems with alcohol and stuff, but oh my God, reading that he was just doing these stupid things while she was waiting outside. Now she's like in the hospital because of him. So she's in the hospital. She is on like life support almost, like her organs are literally failing. And then he goes to see her and he's mad that everyone doesn't want to see him because he left her there, and She is literally like dying almost. Like she's in a bed, she can barely speak. Eventually he sees her in the room and he talks to her and she's like saying how much she loves him and all that. And then it cuts off, it fades to black just as she's like, I love you, and he's like calling out her name. It fades to black. And I'm like, wow, she died. And honestly, I would have preferred that ending. I'm sorry. That ending would have been a great lesson to him. It would have been a great lesson to him. I think it would have taught him a lot if that happened, because he's not a good person. He's a douchebag. But no. So it cuts to black. We think that she could be dead. And then an epilogue pops up. And I think this was like 5+ years later. And all of a sudden, we see them happily ever after. They're married. They adopted a son, and now she's pregnant, and they're all happy ever after. Why would you make it look like she died and just cut to an epilogue? And it's so abrupt, and I'm like, why would you do that? I'm just like, no, this is it. This is it. I'm not reading the next one. Also, the next one is age gap, and I know that some people like age gap, but I think this is like an 18-year-old, like a 30-something-year-old, and I can't do that. I can't do like teenagers with like 30-year-old men. I can't. I know it's fiction. It's not for me. But that wasn't my lowest rated book, unfortunately. The lowest rated book, I gave 1.5, rounded it to a 1. I did not put a reading vlog up because I didn't want to do a whole rant review pretty much. So I'll just do a little bit one here. And I know that people like this series, so please don't come for me. Please don't come for me. It's not even like, it's personal. I just don't like certain aspects of it. And that is Barbarian Alien by Ruby Dixon. I DNF'd this book. I think I DNF'd it around the halfway mark. You might be wondering, is it the bad plot? Is it the annoying characters? No, actually, to both of those, because I read the first book and I didn't mind it. But this book had a problem that I don't hear much people talking about. I saw a few reviews and I really loved what they said about it because I completely agreed. And I'm glad other people saw this, but I haven't really heard anyone talking about it. This book made me extremely uncomfortable, which isn't something I actually expected at all. So before I talk about the uncomfortableness and why I find it uncomfortable, I will talk about one more thing, and that is Liz. Liz is the female protagonist, and she is so annoying and so rude, and she's not funny, but she tries to be funny, and it's so frustrating for me. Liz is pretty unempathetic towards other women in this book. She acts like they shouldn't, like, there's a girl crying and she instantly is like, why is she crying? She just thinks that she's annoying for crying, and she literally just woke up on a planet with aliens and she doesn't know where she is. Like, I'd be crying too. Okay. She also jokes constantly, and personally, I don't find them funny at all. Like, if you find them funny, that's obviously okay. But for me, it wasn't funny. I just didn't like her personality at all. I don't think I found anything redeeming about her, so yeah. Although that isn't the main issue. Like, I could have looked past that, but the main issue is the love interest, Ruckus. So I'm probably gonna be getting into spoilers again, and I need to like talk about this. I need to get into spoilers because I can't explain to you why this book made me uncomfortable without kind of talking about spoilers for the first and second books. If you really love these books, I really implore you to either not watch this because I don't want to get anyone upset, or you can watch this and realize that this is an opinion. I obviously don't think that anyone that reads this has a problem. Like, this isn't even that bad compared to other books out there. I just think that this book is seen as a romantic book. This is romance. This is not dark romance, and this is what bothers me about this book, is that it's supposed to be a romance book, not a dark romance book. So I've never felt uncomfortable by a book before, really, until this, which is kind of strange, but I'm gonna try to explain it. All right, spoilers incoming right now. I'm gonna start from what happens first to last because it's hard to explain why I dislike this so much unless I just go with the kind of what happens first and what eventually I DNF'd it and why. When we start the book, all the females are getting quees, and quees are these parasites that pretty much make it so you can live on this planet. If you don't have a quee, you pretty much cannot breathe the oxygen and survive. So she needs this to live on the planet. And she is kind of ambivalent if she wants this or not. She doesn't really know if she wants it because it's really weird. I mean, yeah, there's a parasite going inside of you. So I think eventually she would have taken it, but she wanted a minute to kind of like decide for herself, I guess. But Ruckus doesn't allow that to happen. So what he does is, because he has a quee inside of him and it's vibrating, which means that they are mates, he knows that if she gets a quee, she will also resonate. She will resonate, which is like the vibration in like the chest area. She will resonate for him, and then she won't pretty much be able to stop from wanting him. So he takes a Kui, and he goes up to her. Then she tries to get him to stop, but he doesn't stop, and instead he holds her down, like forces her down, and I think like cuts a small thing in her skin. That's how they do it. And then he forces the Kui inside of her. This was red flag number 1. He is forcing her to take this, and I understand that she would have died, so you might think like, oh, like he's trying to help her, but no, he wasn't doing it to save her. He was doing it because he wanted her to also resonate and figure out like, hey, you're my mate. And I don't know, this kind of goes with the rest of the reasons why I don't like it, so just remember that he forced this into her. So she has the Queen inside of her, and she does eventually start to resonate for him, and she pretty much is against it right off the bat. So she does not want to. Of course she has like, she thinks he's attractive once in a while, like of course, but she is just like not interested in him or doesn't really want to be around him because he's a jerk. And so knowing that she doesn't want to be around him, and he thinks to himself, oh, well, I need her to be with me because I need her kit, which are like her babies. He brings her to a cave, secludes her from everyone else, and he essentially makes it so that she cannot leave. He takes off her shoes, and he even says, and I'll put quotes up as I go, but he literally says that he take her shoes off so that she could not leave the cave because this whole place has a lot of snow, so she can't walk outside. So he pretty much is saying that she cannot leave, and I will not let her leave until A, she realizes that we're mates and she gives in to that, B, that she gets pregnant with his baby. So he's not gonna let her go and see her like friends and all of that until those things happen. Okay. All right, this is great so far. Okay, let's keep going. I think what made me the most, like this is bad enough, but I think what made me the most uncomfortable is kind of one of those situations where it's like my mind tells me one thing but my body tells me another, where her mind was telling her like I don't want to be around him, like I hate him, and saying like I don't want to be with him, like she doesn't want to sleep with him, but her Kui is literally forcing her to want to be with him. It says that if you keep resisting the Kui, it will eventually make it so that way you have to mate. Like it's inevitable. You will eventually have to. It's like a pull. You can't stop that from happening. And that bothers me so much because we follow Liz and I don't even know if her intentions anymore are true. Like who knows if she actually wants to be with Ruckus. I can't really explain it. I feel like it's just hard. It just feels wrong to me how she was forced into a situation. She's forced in this cave to be really close to him, and she eventually will have to give in. And because they're so close, she's eventually going to, right? Like she doesn't have a choice. And it feels like she's forced into the situation, and it just feels so gross to me. It's so gross. And there's another part where she's asleep. Oh my God, what's up with Ruby Dixon and sleep? It happened in the first book too, where it wasn't as bad as the first book, but the first moment that the couple meet, she is sleeping and he performs things on her while she is sleeping. And I hated that because she was asleep, okay? I don't care if they're mates. That's still wrong to me. And of course she woke up and liked it, because if she didn't like it, it would have been wrong. But because she liked it, it was fine. You should always, obviously, that's still weird to me. In this book, it's not as bad, but Ruckus, she's sleeping and he inspects her body because he's curious, because he's an alien, he's never seen a human before. So he gets her naked I think he's gonna dress her in different clothes or something. I forgot the reason, but he takes off her clothes and then looks down there at her, and like it's just weird. I'll put the quote up again. I'm not gonna say it, but like I read that and I was like, what is he do? No, I don't care if he's an alien and he's curious. Why would the author didn't have to do that? The part I stopped at was when Ruckus got hurt because of those like creatures that hurt. He fell off the cliff or whatever and he got hurt, and then Liz brought him back to the cave and started nursing him back to health. She had very pure intentions of just healing him and making sure he was okay. And then the moment Ruckus wakes up, literally the moment he wakes up, you know what this guy thought? Damn, I want to do things with her. And I'm like, please give her a break. Like she's literally nursing you back to health, making sure you're alive. He was like out for like days, sleeping for days, and she's keeping herself alive because she was forced in this cave system. She can't get out, and he's just like, but my resignation, man, I need to do stuff with you. And I'm like, this is it. I'm done. I couldn't take it anymore. It was to the point where I was like, this is uncomfortable. He can't stop talking about wanting to have sex with her, to the point where I was just like, really? Like that's all he wanted to do. He didn't let her go until she was pregnant and stuff. Like I just don't. And it was leading up to a steamy scene. I wasn't comfortable with it because he was really injured. She nurses him back to health, and all these things that already happened, and then it's like he wants to just do things with her, and I'm like, just stop. I'm sure that later on, obviously, they probably have a more stronger bond, but up until then, I was just like, I can't do this. There's no romantic aspects in this book so far, and regardless of what happens later on, who knows if she actually would have wanted to be in that situation if it weren't for the fact that the Kui was forced into her, and even if she took the Kui, at least it would have been by choice, and she could have been had distance between her and him. That could have been a more natural progression, but now she is being forced in a situation where she doesn't have a choice, and she's in a small confinement, so it's like she doesn't really have much choice. So yeah, this book made me really uncomfortable. It's unfortunate. Like I said, if this was a dark romance where it was supposed to be like this would be different, but this is supposed to be romance. Like, I've heard people say that the aliens in the story or in these stories are feminists, and I find that so ironic because there's so much non-consent in these books. Like, obviously they're not like the worst things. Like, obviously they're not that bad. It's not to the point of like, you know, all the way or anything, but it's still assault. They obviously see women in a high respect because they have so little women, but that doesn't mean that they're feminists. That just means they're desperate for women. So, I mean, like I said, if you enjoy these books, do not think I'm personally attacking you. You could like this book. You could think they're very hot together. There is nothing wrong with that. This is more just my personal opinion and how I felt about it. There was a few people that agreed with me in the reviews, and I was just glad to see that because I don't really know if anyone's mentioned this before in a like booktube video. I'm not going to continue the series. I don't want to like keep reading them if I know I won't like them. I do like hate reading books, but there is a point where I'm like, this is maybe ill-intentioned, and I don't want to do that right now. I DNF'd this at 56%, so I got over the halfway mark, and I was just like, I think that's enough for me. Wow, okay, I think I talked enough. I ranted enough. I'm sorry. I got a little heated for a minute, but you know what? It's fine. It's just a book. It's a fiction. It's no big deal. That is my May wrap up. Like I said, it was a pretty good month. I mean, obviously there were a little bit of lows, but there were a few highs, and I think that June will be a better month for me. I really, really think so. I mean, I've already started The Hero of Ages, and no words, it might be my first 5 stars of the year, so we'll see. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry about me talking about books that I don't like. That's just how I am. Sometimes I get heated and I love to just talk about books I don't like. It's just fun for me. I'll try to keep, I'll keep myself, I'll calm down. I'm fine. Thank you for watching. I think I am almost at 150 subscribers. Like every time I look, I'm like, why? Like, I'm not that interesting, am I? I don't really deserve this, but I really appreciate it. Like, thank you so much. Again, thank you all so much for watching. I will hopefully see you soon. Have a good reading month, have a good day, and thank you for watching, everyone. Bye.